Hello, this is Paul Puella for the American Police Hall of Fame TV show. We are proud today to have Travis Tomasie in our presence to talk about an interview. We just went through his class, and what an enjoyable class it was. I have to say, it was just awesome. Travis, for our viewing audience, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be a part of this, and my name is Travis Tomasie. I've been shooting competitively, I guess, close to 20 years now. I was also a member of the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit, where I competed, I instructed, pretty much everything we do in that unit. I was fortunate to be part of that, and it gave me a lot of opportunities in the industry, and to really to not only to learn how to shoot better competitively, but it gave me those opportunities to teach. And one of the most gratifying parts of that was instructing troops, which was a large part of the job. And even I can say that even winning national and world title, it was more satisfying for me to just be able to give a soldier just a little bit, even if it's a little bit of knowledge on how he could be more accurate or faster on the gun. So I was in the Army for 9 years. Now I am working as a professional shooter for Remington and Para USA. So I compete for them. I'm also heavily involved in research and development, marketing, product management, pretty much anything that you can think of. I try to improve the product, always looking to get better, always looking to improve the components, the reliability, the accuracy. That's really my job. So today I'm here at Gander Mountain and allowing some students to not only just get a little bit of piece of what I do in the competitive world, but also get to test drive some of our newer products. So.
Travis, first, before we get really into the interview, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for training those soldiers. I know you had a lot of soldiers that deployed overseas, and obviously their skills that they learned from you, you've saved many, many lives, and I'm just honored to be in your presence, and I thank you for everything you did for this great country of ours. Having said that, a couple of things that I noticed in your class. I was ambivalent. I will tell you straight up off the bat. I have a hesitancy to listen to a lot of competitive shooters, only for the fact that they're gamers, and it doesn't fall a lot of times into the practicality of real self-defense. But I want to stand corrected on that today, because in comparison, as far as the things that you were telling them, and I did learn a couple of new things today that I will steal from you with no shame. But the things that you said, I've had Professor Dale Comstock at the American Police Hall of Fame, and he was a Delta Force breacher, later CIA gentleman that had a lot of experience. And the things that you were saying as far as grip, stance, and shooting alignment was just in par with him, and that validates everything that you were saying to these, in my mind, to these students that you had today. And we have the video footage of everything that went on the range, and I think the results speak for themselves. So I'll go ahead and I'll have you elaborate on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So, I come from the competitive background, but I'm always looking for ways to, what can you take from the lessons you learn on the range there and apply them to real world? I mean, for me, it's all about speed and accuracy. Whatever you can do as far as your techniques to be, improve your recoil management, get shots on target as quick as you can, accurate shots. One of the things that I think my stance is very important to me. As opposed to using a traditional shoulder width, feet on par stance, I use a wider than shoulder width stance. My firing foot is back, more of a fighting stance. And I feel that gives me better recoil management, but it also allows me to get my legs into play. So I'm a big believer in using your legs are the strongest part of your body, And when you get them integrated into your shooting platform, so where you're actually driving the pistol with your legs versus just your torso, which is weaker, you gain in speed and you gain in accuracy. As well as the mechanics of gripping the pistol are very important to me. I want to be able to control the recoil, manage the recoil without having to rely solely on squeezing the living daylights out of the pistol. So, high on the grip with your firing hand, a good wrist lock, camming the wrist forward with your support hand is very key, very important. A lot of my grip comes from my support hand, which allows me to better articulate the trigger with my firing hand. I can activate it quicker with more control. So those are just a few of the things that I have taken from competition, but I apply them to any type of shooting that I may be, any type of situation that I might be in where I'm shooting.
You were talking about on the competitive level, which there's a lot of times people don't delve into the history of where things come from, and it gets a little bit convoluted and is passed from one instructor down to another instructor, down to another instructor, and by the time you get to 4 or 5 instructors, it's totally taken out of its context. But one of the things that you were talking about today, both in trigger control and on the sights, it kind of, not contradicted, but it sounded a little bit different from what people from past 2 generations might have talked about. I would like you to elaborate just a little bit on that, if you will.
Sure, absolutely. Number one with the trigger. From the beginning of time you're taught squeeze, gently squeeze the trigger, prep it, squeeze it. And that's great for ultimate accuracy, for grouping the gun, for checking your zero. But there comes a time when you're asked to step on the gas and you have to function the gun at a higher rate of speed. And in that situation, what I have found is that, and it sounds contradictory, but you're slapping the trigger. You're coming off the trigger and back on as quickly as possible. The amount of time that your finger spends on the trigger is minimal, allowing the trigger to reset on its own as quick as possible. And if you do so in a manner that doesn't disturb the sights from the sights, which you can learn to do this, your rate of fire can be much, much higher. It's something that I believe is something that's good to experiment with. When people get out to the range to try this out, is actually, slapping it has negative connotations. Absolutely, that you're somehow going to miss the target. Your accuracy is going to degrade. When you're talking your standard practical distances, let's say 5, 10, 12 yards, a good slapping technique can work very, very well. Another way that I like to look at that is if you go from different handguns, all of them have a different reset. Some of them have a very short positive reset, other ones have a very long reset. And if you're used to riding the reset, gently squeezing and riding the reset, that can be an issue for you when you go to a different platform. So by learning to come completely off of the trigger, you're more able to adapt to different handguns. Another one is sight alignment or sight focus, let's say. You're taught to focus on the front sight, focus on the front sight. Now, it's excellent, like I said, for grouping or zeroing. There comes a time where you start to shoot faster, your target may be closer, where you use what I like to consider an intermediate target focus. What I mean by that is my focal point isn't on the front sight 100%, nor is it 100% on the target, but it's in between. So the front sight and the target are equally out of focus. That would be the type of focus that I'm using, an intermediate focus, in my general 7, 10-yard target distances. It works extremely well. Why would you use it? Well, it's quicker. It's faster. It's a faster sight picture. Now, when the target starts getting out to 15, 20, if I'm going to take a 20-yard headshot, I personally go back to 100% front sight focus. But in closer distances, you can be just as accurate. Here's a question that a lot of my students ask. They say, you're shooting so fast, there's no way you're seeing the sights. I'm seeing the sights. I'm just not 100% focused on them. Never do I fire over the top of the gun. The sights are in my line of sight. I'm looking through them on a really close target, a 3-yard target. I'm still aware of where the sights are, and that's important. Never do I lose sight of the sights, even though they're not in perfect focus. Sometimes I'll take a front sight and serrate it, the front edge of it. And with those serrations, I can judge or determine my front sight focus. In competition, it's nice because when I'm done with the stage, I'll actually go back in my mind. I see all of my engagements, and I can actually determine, well, on that target, it was blurry. On that target, it was a piece of steel at 20 yards. You know, the serrations were in focus. It's a nice way to learn and start to visualize or the imagery of a sight focus.
This is contradictory to a lot of people, and ladies and gentlemen, you're just going to have to live with it. This is a world champion. You can't argue with that. I mean, what the heck? But so sometimes we got to get out of our box of our old way of thinking and think of new things. And like I said, this gentleman has some of the most updated information in the competitive world. And that's from a standpoint of where I come from, learning from ex-military special operations guys. I know from the past that they started with a whole bunch, because I was there from the beginning when they brought John Shaw in and Jerry Barnhart and all those guys. So this is really an honor for me to learn this. I also have to compliment you on being sponsored by Para. As I was talking to you earlier, there was a time in my military career where some of the powers that be thought it would be best to send me on diplomatic missions to without being armed, and I was not really a happy camper on that. So my good friend Sam Andrews, who as Andrews Custom Leather, made me a notebook. I could say this now because I'm no longer in the military. And I traveled all over the country with a P-14 in an extra magazine in this simulated Bible, and no one knew the difference. So, and I was always happy to do that. So, you know, tell awesome. The people up there I'm really happy about that, because I was always like, "God bless you, my son. You know, you're saved. You just don't know how lucky you are." But,
we're proud to hear that. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, I've been in this business for about 30-some odd years, and I was ambivalent to and kind of resistant. I got dragged here by our good friends Andy and Tim, and you know, they said you got to come here, and I'm so happy I did. I learned quite a bit of little tips, and I want to thank you so very much, Travis.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.